This bird recognizes your face. Not just sees you, recognizes you. Years later, different location, different context. It remembers. And if you wronged it once, it tells the others. They pass the information, like gossip, like culture. Now they all know, they all remember, and they all wait. This isn't instinct. This isn't programming. This is something else. Something that shouldn't fit inside a brain the size of a walnut, but it does. This animal shouldn't be this intelligent. And yet, in 2008, researchers at the University of Washington did something strange. They put on masks. Caveman masks. Rubber, cheap, the kind you'd buy for Halloween. And then they trapped crows. Not to hurt them, just to tag them, for research. But the crows didn't care about intent. They cared about the face, the mask. The researchers released the crows, went back to their work, and expected nothing. What happened next changed everything we thought we knew about animal intelligence. Days later, the researchers walked across campus, still wearing the masks. The crows attacked, dive-bombed them, screamed, chased. Okay, crows hold grudges, interesting. But then, weeks later, same masks, different crows. Crows that were never trapped. They attacked too. The original crows had taught them, passed the information. That face, that mask, dangerous. Years passed, 5 years. The researchers put the masks back on. The crows still attacked, not the original crows. Their children, their grandchildren. Crows that were born after the experiment. They inherited the grudge. Not genetically, culturally. This is a bird with a brain smaller than your thumb. And it's doing something we thought only humans could do. Remembering faces, teaching others, passing culture across generations. This shouldn't be possible, but it is. Let's talk about what crows can actually do, not metaphorically, not poetically. Actually, crows recognize individual human faces. Not just human versus not human, specific faces. They differentiate between thousands of faces, and they remember them. For years, studies show crows can remember a face for at least 5 years, possibly longer. We don't know the upper limit because the experiments haven't run long enough. They might remember for life. And here's what makes it worse. They don't just remember, they categorize. Friendly face, neutral face, dangerous face. And they adjust their behavior accordingly. If you've fed a crow, it approaches you, follows you, expects food. If you've threatened a crow, it avoids you, watches you, warns others. It's not random, it's calculated. And it's not just visual. Crows remember context. A researcher in a lab coat trapped them. Now all people in lab coats are suspect. Even different people. Even years later. The crows generalized, extrapolated. That's not conditioning. That's reasoning. And then there's the teaching. When a crow identifies a threat, it doesn't keep the information to itself. It vocalizes. Specific calls. Alarm calls. Other crows hear. They learn. That face. Avoid. They've never interacted with the person, but now they know. The knowledge spreads, not slowly, not passively, actively, deliberately. Crows have culture, and culture requires memory. It requires teaching. It requires understanding that others don't know what you know, and filling that gap. If that's not theory of mind, what is it? That's what separates humans from most animals. Except it's not just humans. Crows have it too, and they use it to hold grudges. For years. Across generations, this is a bird. A brain the size of a walnut. It shouldn't be capable of this, but it is. And then there's the funerals. Yes, funerals. When a crow finds a dead crow, something happens. Other crows gather. Dozens of them. They don't eat the body. They don't scavenge. They just gather, they circle, they vocalize, they observe. For minutes, sometimes hours, and then they leave. But they remember the location. Studies show crows avoid areas where they've seen dead crows. For weeks, months, possibly years. They associate the location with danger. They learn something kills crows here. Don't go there. That's threat assessment. That's memory. That's learning. But here's the disturbing part. The crows that gather aren't just observing the body. They're observing the context. If a human is near the dead crow, the crows remember that human. Forever. That human becomes marked, dangerous. Even if the human didn't kill the crow. Even if they just happen to be nearby. The crow assumes causation. And teaches others. This is superstition. This is culture. This is belief. This is something we thought required language. Required complex cognition. Crows do it without either, or maybe. They do have both. We just don't understand it yet. Crows use tools. That's not news. Lots of animals use tools. Chimps use sticks. Otters use rocks. But crows don't just use tools. They make them from scratch with intent. In one famous experiment, a crow named Betty was given a straight piece of wire and a small bucket of food at the bottom of a tube. The wire was too short to reach, the tube too narrow for her beak. Betty looked at the wire. Then she bent it. Not randomly, deliberately. She created a hook, inserted it into the tube, pulled up the bucket, retrieved the food. No one taught her this. She'd never seen it done. She just figured it out. That's not trial and error. That's insight. That's understanding cause and effect. That's engineering. And it gets stranger. Wild crows in New Caledonia make tools from leaves. They find pandanus leaves, tear them into strips, shape them into hooks. They carry these tools with them, use them to extract insects from tree bark. And they don't just make any hook. They make different types. Wide hooks for wide crevices. Narrow hooks for narrow gaps. They customize, they refine, they improve the design. That's iterative thinking. That's what humans do. And crows do it with a brain that weighs 10 grams. For reference, a human brain weighs 1,400 grams. A crow brain is 140 times smaller. And yet, the tool-making ability is comparable to a 7-year-old child. How? The answer is structure. Crow brains are small, but they're dense. Neurons are packed tightly. Connections are efficient. The ratio of neurons to brain size is similar to primates. In some areas, it's higher. Crows don't have a large brain. They have an optimized brain. Evolution didn't make them bigger, it made them better. But that still doesn't explain the reasoning, the planning, the problem solving, because crows don't just react, they predict. In another experiment, crows were shown a series of tubes with different water levels. Food floated on top, out of reach. The crows were given stones. They dropped stones into the tubes. The water level rose. The food became accessible. Okay, that's basic physics. But then the researchers made it harder. They gave the crows multiple tubes, some with water, some with sand. The crows tested each tube, dropped a stone, observed. Then they ignored the sand tubes. They only used the water tubes. They understood. Water plus stone equals rise in food. Sand plus stone equals nothing. That's not instinct. That's comprehension. And it's not just physics. Crows understand sequences. They can solve multi-step puzzles, open a box to get a stick, use the stick to retrieve a key, use the key to unlock food. 3 steps, planned in advance. That requires working memory, foresight, delayed gratification. That requires thinking. Not reacting, thinking. This is a bird, and it's thinking. Here's the question no one wants to ask. Do crows understand death? Not just danger, not just avoid. Do they understand that death is permanent? That it could happen to them? We don't know. But the evidence is unsettling. Crows don't just avoid dead crows. They investigate them. When researchers place a dead crow in an area, living crows don't flee immediately. They approach cautiously. They circle. They vocalize. They seem to be processing, and then they leave. And they never return to that spot. For months, it's as if they're marking it. Death happened here. But that's more than avoidance. That's memory of mortality. And there's another behavior that's even stranger. Crows occasionally bring objects to dead crows. Sticks, leaves, small items. They place them near the body, then leave. We don't know why. It could be random. It could be coincidence. Or it could be ritual. We associate ritual with consciousness, with understanding meaning beyond function. If crows have ritual, what does that mean? And then there's the alarm calls. When a crow sees a dead crow, it makes specific vocalizations. Other crows respond. They gather. They echo the call. It's not a generic alarm. It's specific to death. Researchers have recorded these calls, played them back. Crows react, even without a body present. The call alone conveys death, here. That's symbolic communication. That's language, not complex, but functional. A word for death, a concept for mortality. Does that mean crows understand they will die? We can't ask them, but their behavior suggests something. Avoidance, ritual, communication. These are things we do when we understand death. And if crows understand death, then they have a concept of self. Because you can't fear your own death unless you understand you exist. If this isn't a form of consciousness, we don't know what to call it. Not instinct, consciousness, and that should not fit inside a brain this small. But it does. So what is a crow? A bird, obviously, but also an animal with facial recognition, multi-generational cultural memory, tool creation and use, abstract reasoning, symbolic communication, possibly consciousness of mortality. These are things we thought required large brains, complex neural structures, language, society. Crows have none of these, not the way we define them. And yet, they do all of it, with a brain the size of a walnut, with no prefrontal cortex, with a completely different neural architecture. Evolution didn't give crows our tools, it gave them their own. And somehow, they arrived at the same place. Intelligence. Not human intelligence, crow intelligence, but intelligence nonetheless. This animal shouldn't be this intelligent. By every metric we use to measure cognition, crows shouldn't be here. Their brains are too small. Their lifespan's too short. Their evolutionary path too different. And yet, they recognize your face. They remember for years. They teach their children. They mourn their dead. They solve problems. They plan. They think, not like us, but think nonetheless. And that raises a question we're not ready to answer. What else have we missed? What other animals are hiding intelligence we can't measure? Because if crows can do this, with brains this small, what are we not seeing? The crow is still here, watching, remembering, thinking, in ways we're only beginning to understand. This animal shouldn't be this intelligent, but it is, and it's probably not alone. If crows can think like this, what else can? Subscribe, because intelligence isn't what we thought, and the anomalies are watching us back.